All right. Hi, my name is Casey Jones, and this is my autobiographical literacy language story. So, I did a PowerPoint slide, Google slide, but I wanted to be able to put my words into it and explain it a little more because it's mostly just pictures. So that's why I'm recording myself on Zoom, explaining it to you. Okay, so first I started. So how I did this was I went by grade level and how literacy affected me in each way. So, first, start out with pre K. To be honest with you, I don't remember pre K that well. Um, but what I do remember is the parental influence I had. My mom would always read me bedtime stories when I went to bed. Um, and that is one of the reasons that I love reading to this day, is because of all those many books she read to me growing up. And I still have those books too. Um, and my grandma, she would sing to me when we'd get like home from school. So I would always hear different kinds of music from her. And then as for writing, obviously in pre-K you can't really write yet, but I do remember watching. So my grandma used to watch me all the time after school, and I would draw these the hopscotch squares, and I'd watch her write the numbers, and she'd ask me, of course, like, what number is this? One. What number is this? Two. So that helped me out a lot. Next is kindergarten, and that's kind of when my reading kicked off. Um, I was always advanced in reading, not in writing though. Um, Reading always came easy to me, and I feel like it's because of my mom reading me those stories all those years. So my favorite books in kindergarten, I remember, were like Clifford and all the Dr. Seuss books. Like I have all of them still. And then in kindergarten, I remember we would learn to write. Um, we were starting to learn to write our letters, and so we would do these little things where you have to trace the dotted line. Honestly, I always felt frustrated because I still to this day can't even color in the lines, and so mine were always like way looped out. So it was just, yeah, I remember being frustrated with everything. Um, oh, this picture's gone. Well, in elementary school, for reading wise, again, this is when my reading was at an all time high. I was just in love with it. And another person who influenced me was my third grade teacher. This series right here is called the Magic Tree House series. And she would read to us for like 10 minutes after lunch every day, I would remember, and it would be one of these books. And then after I finished her class, I just kept reading them. And he still to this day makes a new book every single year. And I go out and I either go to the library or I buy it, so I could read it, even though it's at like a third grade, like elementary level book. And then I do remember, again, I was kind of a nerd. I hung out in the library, and this Caterpillar book was very popular with all of us kids back in the day. And then I had a picture here of writing wise growing up. I remember in elementary school they taught us how to write in cursive, which literally right after, you'll see later, um, we never wrote in cursive. I remember like my dad telling me like, you have to learn how to write in cursive because in high school they're going to make you write essays and stuff in cursive. And like looking back at it now, I laugh because like I've never had, I barely had to write handwritten essays in general, much less in cursive. But learning cursive was extremely frustrating to me because again, they had you trace, and certain certain letters were similar to each other. So like a K, if you looped it a certain way, looked like a P. And so it was just hard to me. So in middle school, again, I was a reader, and I was a library, the librarian's teacher's assistant. So I pretty much worked in the library every single, like, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And so I'd put all the books away, and I read so many books, like just at any grade level. I read a lot of documentary books. So it's just like one of the reasons I feel I'm as knowledgeable as I am today, which I don't think I would have been without that TA position. As for writing, so we learned, I remember in 6th grade, they introduced us to computers and typing, and it was those big, huge fossil computers. And we would take the typing tests online, and how many could you get in 60 seconds, how many could letters could you get in 90 seconds, and so on. I remember doing that. And then high school. So in high school, I was in AP literature and AP language for English. And so I was always like, and then in freshman and sophomore year, I was in advanced English, mostly because of my reading levels. And my writing levels were decent. They weren't like excel, but they were decent. So that's why I was always in the higher classes. So we read the typical AP books: To Kill a Mockingbird, Sophie's World, Romeo and Juliet, The Catcher in the Rye. In high school, I didn't enjoy reading as much as I had growing up because these books are very dull. I'm more of like mystery, science fiction, not, this is definitely not Harry Potter type of thing. So I didn't have time to read for pleasure because I was playing sports and doing AP homework for 4 different classes. But yeah, anyway, and then for writing, we went, for AP at least, we started using laptops, and they introduced us to Microsoft Word and Publisher and Excel and how to start using those. And so we would start typing essays and turning them in. We would still write essays because the AP testing, you had to write 3 essays in an hour and a half. I think that's what it was. And so we'd practice that, and that was miserable. And then in high school, I took 3 years of Spanish. So I took Spanish 1, 2, and then my 3rd year, it was called Honors Spanish. I have no idea why it was called that. But I learned in those 3 years, I probably learned the equivalent of like kindergarten and 1st grade Spanish speaking skills. And I'm lucky because I like have friends that I could practice it with today, but some people in my class that had that, the same thing those 3 years, they don't remember any of it because they don't use it. So that's how that class affected me. So now in college, in my undergrad, as for books, so I mostly kept up with, most of my books consisted of textbooks. Again, college was busy time of life where you didn't have time to read for pleasure. Well, I didn't, at least. And so I would usually check the news, whether it was like an actual newspaper or if I was just checking on my phone in the morning. And then for writing, I have a Mac. And so in college, I was introduced to Google Docs, and which we use in this class, and I absolutely love Google Docs because of the interaction you can have with other people, and you're able to collaborate way better than, Microsoft, where you have to sit next to someone and physically like talk to them about it. And then other writing was what that I learned in college too, was like how to write lesson plans. In my program, I'm a physical education major. We've been writing lesson plans since my freshman year, and it was different than a usual like write an essay. It was like, no, you have to break it into sections. And so it was like difficult for me at first growing up in AP, like 5 paragraphs and proper format and all this, to go to lesson plan where it's like, okay, it's different for every single thing you do. And you have to remember this, you have to remember safety, you have to remember equipment, all these different things. And then right here in the middle, I put, which I feel is a form of literacy in our day and age, is social media. So obviously in college is when I like started using social media the most, because it was like how to know what your friends were doing, what was going on in the world, what was going on with your friends back home, your family back home. It was just a way to interact. And yeah. Okay. And now post-grad, so I finally have time to read again. I'm sure that won't be for long. But most of my readings now, it's not like, my science fiction. Occasionally it is, if I see a cool book that's out. But a lot of it's on like, I like reading books on like psychology. I don't know, it just fascinates me. And coaching, because that's what I am doing. So I only read books that pertain to me now. And then of course I always I don't wake up and check social media anymore, but I do occasionally check my BuzzFeed news. And then post-grad, I'm definitely going to keep using Google Docs and my Mac until it dies on me. Knock on wood. And then, of course, I'll keep lesson planning. I've already started a bunch of lesson plans and block plans for the upcoming school year, because I got an intern position at a high school, so I've been preparing all summer. And then this notebook it's kind of it's a little side story. I do still handwrite a lot of notes compared to other college students who type out notes. But for coaching, I always carry this green notebook around, and I coach volleyball, so I'll draw out our lineup, I'll write out our workouts, and my fellow coaches get so mad. They're like, why can't you just type it and share it with us? Because I'll be sending them pictures from my notebook. It's just more, I don't know, it's just more of a brainstorming thing to me, is by writing stuff down. Okay, so next, I'm almost done. This is so music, I feel like, is huge. I had to do a separate one because it starts when you're young, and there's also so many influences as well. So obviously, I think it's a form of literacy because it exposes you to different cultures, different genres. Like, it's just, you can relate to different music. Like, everyone relates to different music. So I feel like it's a huge form of literacy, and it's a big part of my life. I don't play music, I can't sing, but I love listening to it. I will constantly have earphones in if I could, or be playing something. So first I put like some childhood songs you'd sing, like the ABCs, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, Mary Had a Little Lamb. Those are all songs like that I was talking about in the beginning that my nana would sing to me, my grandma, sorry. And then like in elementary school, I remember we sang the Star Spangled Banner at like a Veterans Day event, which I thought was entertaining because none of us could sing. And then once we hit middle school, it was like the little pop star boy band type of age. So I was obsessed with Hannah Montana and the Jonas Brothers. I still am obsessed with the Jonas Brothers. And then so these three right here, Pitbull, Guns N' Roses, and Alan Jackson, are all influences from my parents. My mom is like obsessed with Pitbull. My dad likes the more hardcore rock music, and my nana just like loves Alan Jackson and country music. So I grew up listening to a variety of music, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I was exposed to a lot of different things, and these are the artists that I like really listen to now. So I'm like wide ranged as well. I go from Rihanna to Dan and Shay, who's country, to Ed Sheeran, to Nick Jonas. again, still obsessed with the Jonas Brothers. But it's just a way to show that music can affect someone, and it's a form of literacy. It definitely is. Okay. And then another way literacy affected me was the friendships I had. So I'll explain. I grew up in a really small town called Dos Palos, and it was 90% Hispanic population, like 5% white, and like 5% African American. So I was the minority in my town, which is fine. And so growing up, like, we were always a very loving community, and I was able to interact with people that didn't look like me, didn't speak the same language as me. And so I was able to pick up on phrases, words over the years of playing sports with people, living with people, like living next to different people, my friends that I've had. And I feel like being exposed to those friendships, like, helped me with my literacy, because I'm able to read certain passages in Spanish now, or like speak or like I can't speak it, but I can understand what people are saying. So it was really nice growing up because it helped me in that literary sense. I have this tortilla picture here. It's a funny little side story. So growing up, my neighbors she would always make us homemade tortillas on Sundays, and I still have the recipe in my recipe book. It's packed right now. That's why I didn't take a picture of it. But it's she wrote out the recipe in Spanish, and my mom freaked out at first because she's like, what if I like mix it up and I put, a different ingredient because I get it mixed up? And so she came over and she like translated it for us, and then after that one time of telling us, like, we knew exactly what it was. And so I still have it, the same recipe card written in Spanish, and we make them like almost every Sunday when I go home. So it's a really nice tradition and literary sense, because it's helped us both, like my family and other families, grow. So that's my autobiographical sorry, I can't say it. Autobiographical literacy language story, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.